All right, so even now, I don't know if you pay attention to this kind of thing, but even now you can see. Now, I do believe the Catholic Church will be tied into this in some form and fashion. And if you ever notice now, by the way, in the Catholic Church, the authority is not the Bible. The authority is the Pope. All right, that's the authority. The authority is the Pope and the Church, and the Bible is down a little ways. All right, and so. If you ever watch and hear some of the statements that the Pope has made, even in recent years, you will see him warming to other religions. Have you seen what I'm talking about? Like Islam, they're trying to incorporate under the guise of unity and love, unifying all these different religions into one. Well, that's what this religious system is going to look like. All right, it's going to be all these religious systems compiled into one ecumenical religion. All right. And they're going to be unified in this, and the world is going to be, we'll look at some of this in a minute, but they're going to be, what's the word? This is part of God's plan, but anyway, the Antichrist uses it. Well, later on, about the midway of the tribulation, something will change. Remember, he's going to a mock death, burial, a death and a resurrection. Remember, we looked at that. He's going to be wounded, and it's going to be a mortal wound, and it's going to appear to he be resurrected. This is going to happen about midway of the tribulation, and in the midway of that tribulation, something's going to change within that religious system. It's not going to be just all the religions of the world coming together. He will transform this religion into a religion to where they worship the Antichrist himself. All right, and we read all this last week. As a matter of fact, it gets down and it says, and the beast hates the whore. The beast is the Antichrist, and it starts out with the woman riding the beast. All right, the woman riding the beast. So in other words, the beast is part of, this is important because we're going to talk about this in a minute, the beast is supporting and carrying this religion. All right, and then when it transforms, he dies and he resurrects in a mock resurrection. It's going to change to where he's going to do away and completely destroy that whole system to resurrect a new system where he is worshipped. And this is part of this religious system, okay? But in the end is going to be he's going to be destroyed. And again, this is the final form of world religion. Have you ever seen, even in today, people try to be non-religious? You ever seen that, like atheism and things like that? It's not going to be that way at the end. The people of the earth are going to be very religious, and they're going to be following this religion. All right, this religion of worshiping the Antichrist. So let's go down to verse number. We'll start in verse number 9. Well, let me back up to 8. And the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Now, what is perdition? That is destruction. You remember we talked about who was and is not. So he dies, and then he says, and he is. Down at the back of this verse, the bottom of this verse, it'll reiterate this, but he's going to resurrect. All right? And we looked at that back in the previous chapters. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. You remember that? All right, so he dies and then he resurrects. That's what this is talking about here. And here is the mind which hath wisdom, the 7 heads. Now remember, in the very first part of this chapter, it talked about the 7 heads and the 10 horns, and it describing the Antichrist and the system like that. It's getting into that now, so we're going to discuss that tonight. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So the woman, who's the woman? The woman is this religious system. All right, this religious system that's going to be undone. This religious system, it sits on 7 mountains. Now it gets a little deeper. So let's look at this. And there are 7 kings. So these 7 mountains are actually 7 kings. All right, now they rule from different places or whatever. We'll talk about that in just a minute. 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is the 7th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is the Lord of hosts and the King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto them, unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their heart to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the word of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. All right, so now let's back up here and let's talk about the heads for a minute. Now, and you're going to have to go in your mind's eye. I hope you've read this. I hope you've studied this, because we don't have the time to go through all in detail. So one thing here is Rome. Now, some people think this is Rome, the 7 hills, because this is actually part of a description of the Roman Empire where they rule from 7 hills. But it does say there's 7 kings. And so, in some ways, this particular system can be linked to Rome, and I think it probably will be. And I mentioned that a little bit about the Roman Catholic Church, but it'll be linked to Rome a little bit. But then, also in verse number 10, it says the 7 kings, 5 are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. What is that talking about? These 7 heads that make up this Babylonian empire, this empire that Antichrist has set up. Now, I want to remind you again that who is actually in charge of, I say in charge, who is actually the influence behind politics? We talked about this already. Somebody help me here. Now, Chip, you're county commissioner back there, but and I'm not directing this exactly toward you, and I'm glad actually we have some believers that are actually rising up to serve in these capacities. But you've probably, in the meetings that you've had already, and I'm putting you on the spot, we haven't talked about this. Can you sense an influence that is attempting to influence people that is not the Lord? Can you sense that in meetings or whatever else? You know, I'm putting you on the spot here, and I'm not meaning to really do that. But I have heard of this, and I've talked with other politicians. I think one of the senators, was it Mark Walker? He used to be a senator. Was he a senator at one time? And I think I heard him speak one time, and he was talking about being in a room, and it was a discussion about abortion. You know, this was higher up than you know, just the county stuff. But man, he said you could feel the spiritual warfare that was going on. You could feel it in that room. And I'm just saying there are influences, and the influences that are there are not godly influences. You know, I'm glad Chip is a godly influence for the county and trying to make decisions. But he's looking at things through the lens of Scripture, right? I mean, that's the way our worldview goes through Scripture, but everybody else don't have that view. And so there's that tension. Do you remember when Jesus was in, and I keep going back to this, you remember when Jesus was in the wilderness and he was being tempted of the devil, and he said, he said, if you'll bow down and worship me, I'll give you all these kingdoms. Remember that? That's in Matthew. Now, Jesus didn't debate whether he had control of those kingdoms. You know, he didn't debate that. But he didn't take the bait, all right? He didn't go that direction, but nevertheless, so let's talk about those 7 kings or those 7 kingdoms, all right? So, and I want us to go, and Daniel, you remember I've told you before that Revelation and Daniel go hand in hand, right? It's almost like bookends, or it's almost like companions. And if you go back to the book of Daniel, and I want you to rehearse in your mind the statue of Nebuchadnezzar. Remember that statue that he erected? or he had a dream about this, and the top of it was gold. Remember that? And then you had silver, and then you had bronze, and then you had, or brass, and then you had iron under that. And so you had these kingdoms here. Well, and then before even that statue, you had some kingdoms. When you go to the Old Testament, who was the ruling power? Who was one? When I say that, I do mean a world empire that they ruled the world, the most of the known world. Now, we do know that Egypt didn't rule North America, but we're talking about the known world at the time, the major world power. So who was the major world power in the book of Exodus, for instance? Who was the major world power? Nobody knows? Oh, come on. Who are the Israelites in bondage to? Huh? Who had the Israelites in bondage? Egypt. All right, so Egypt at that time was a world power. Man, can you not hear me? Is this and so Egypt was a world power. All right, and then you have Assyria that came after that. All right, and then after that you had Babylon. All right, and that's actually when you get into the statue of Nebuchadnezzar. The gold represented Babylon. All right, and then you get to the silver, and that represented the Medo-Persia Empire. And then you had the Greeks, right? You had the Greeks. And then, so you had like 5 empires that have passed off the scene. Do the Greeks rule anymore? Do the Egyptians rule anymore? Is that the world power? What about the Babylonians? No, they don't rule anymore. So you had these 5 kingdoms. And now when John was seeing this vision, who was in power? Who was the world power at that time when John was seeing these visions? All right. Who was in charge when Jesus was here? Who? The Romans. All right. So the Romans were still in charge while John was writing this. So now let's go back and read this. All right. Again. Man, I'm going to tell you what. We're going to have to do some jumping jacks or something, get you woke up. You snuggled up Sunday under the covers and because of the ice and snow, and you just now coming out of the covers. It sounds like. All right, so look, there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and I just told you who those were, and one is. Who's the one that is at this point? That is Rome. All right, and then it says, and the other is not yet come. Now, so the one that is not yet come, which one is that talking about? This is talking about the one that the Antichrist is going to rule. And again, he's going to rule the world. All right, this will be a world empire, a one world empire, a one world government, a one world religion, a one world currency, all these things. And so this one has not yet come. So what do the 7 heads represent? And we're looking across history here. It represents those world empires who was influential in those, who was behind a lot of what they did. Satan was, all right? And all right, so let's go to verse number 10 again. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, isn't that interesting? It's not when it cometh. When he cometh. Who's the he that this is referring to there? It's referring to the beast or the Antichrist. That's what it's referring to. He must continue a short space. Now, let's go, and I want to. All right, so remember that it's a short space. Now, I didn't go back and look at all of the history of all these empires, but these empires lasted for a considerable amount of time. All right, the Roman Empire, it was hundreds of years. All right, it really was. It was the Roman Empire. I mean, it lasted for a long, long time. As a matter of, and so. But it says here that it's going to last just a short time. Now, back to Revelation 12. verse number 12, it says this, Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Now, who is the influence behind the Antichrist? Satan is, all right? And again, this is during the tribulation period. This is a 7-year period, and this is just going to be a short time that the Antichrist is going to rule, and the devil knows he has a short time. And then here in chapter 17, it says it's for a short time. And in chapter 13, verse number 5, And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue, how long? 40 and 2 months. That's not a very long time. That's 3.5 years. That's half of the tribulation period. And so, again, this is just a condensed world power that's not going to last very long. Let's see. All right, so now let's go to verse number 11. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. So it's talking about a 7th and 8th kingdom. But how is that possible? All right, so now let's go to the religious side of things. Now, Rome, just so that you know, I mean, in every one of these kingdoms there was religion. In Babylon, they had religion. In Egypt, they had religion, didn't they? As a matter of fact, all the 10 plagues that God brought against the Egyptians, it was to target one of their gods. So they all had a false form of religion. In idol worship, sometimes it was nature, sometimes it was the sun. Babylon, the same thing. Rome, the same thing. They had all these gods that they worshipped. Okay, the Greeks, same thing. All right, so they had all of these, and so you remember I told you in the beginning part of the tribulation there is a religious system set up that is an ecumenical system. It has unified all the religions of the world to come together, right? It's not necessarily at that point worshiping the Antichrist, but they're coming together in the form of unity to worship whatever. Okay, and look what it says in verse number 11. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7. You see that? So we've looked at 6 already, the 6th one being Rome. The 7th one is going to be part of that religious system. That's going to be a ruling class, the Babylon system, all right? That is talking about, that we've already been talking about. Now remember, the Antichrist is part of that system at that point. He's part of it. That's what he said. He's of that system. But then at the midpoint of the tribulation, he's going to do away with that system to elevate himself to be as God and to be worshipped. So this is the 7th and the 8th. So he's part of both of these. Does that make sense? So the 7th one, he's part of it. He's promoting this unity and this love, and then he's going to die and resurrect, and it will pave the way for the 8th empire that he's going to rule completely and utterly. Does that make sense? All right, you with me? All right. Again, but the end of it, let's look at verse number 11. He is the 8th and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Again, this is what is the end of the Antichrist. It's going to be destruction. Perdition is destruction. That's where he's headed. As a matter of fact, let me give you another verse. Now go back in verse number 10. It says 5 are fallen. 5 are fallen. Now, some of these empires fell by the wayside. How did Rome dissolve? Let's say it that way. Was it they were conquered by another world empire? Anybody? Okay. No, we're in Montgomery County. Y'all didn't have history in Montgomery County, is what I'm gathering here. All right. So, no, I'm picking y'all. What was the question I even asked? I'm trying. Okay, how did Rome dissolve? Was it because a world empire came and destroyed them? They imploded. All right, it was corruption from the inside. You've heard of what was it? They came and Brutus stabbed him, and and all that. And anyway, it was corruption, and it finally dissolved. Is Rome a world empire now? So it fell by the wayside. All right, so it fell. But this one is going to be destroyed. All right, this one here that we're talking about now is not just going to fall by the wayside. It is going to be destroyed. All right, and I think we all understand how that destruction is going to come about. Who's going to do the destroying in this case? Oh, man. Who is going to be doing the destroying in this case? Jesus is, all right? We'll look at it in a second. All right, 2 Thessalonians, it gives a title to the Antichrist here. Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse number 3. And it says, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by the word, neither by the letter, as from us, as the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you. Am I in the... Okay, yeah. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come. What day is that talking about? It's talking about the tribulation. It's talking about the day the Antichrist steps on the scene. Except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. There you see it again. Or the son of destruction. You see that again. So again, that title is still there, and is still ascribed to him. He's going to be destroyed. All right, let's go down to verse number 12 in chapter 17. And the 10 horns, now remember there's 7 heads, there's 10 horns. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Again, just a short time that this is going to take place. So within this structure that the Antichrist is setting up, this is the last final form of ruling power, and it is going to be a 10-nation confederacy. And some people have even suggested that the world is going to be divided into 10 parts. All right, and within those 10 parts, there's going to be a king ruling in each one of those parts. Does that make sense? So you may have one in Europe, one in North America, one in South America, maybe one in Asia. Who knows how they're going to divide it up? But it could be divided up like that. But nevertheless, they're going to be ruling the world. It's going to be a 10-king confederacy. And these kings are going to give all of their power, all of their influence, all of their resources to the Antichrist. All right, so that's how his kingdom is going to look. It is 10 kings to rule the world, and with him being at the head of it. Now remember, in the statue of Nebuchadnezzar back in Daniel, you had the head as gold. You had the shoulders as silver. You keep going on down, and you get all the way down to the feet, and it was iron mixed with miry clay. You remember the and how many toes was there? 10 toes. That was not hard, okay? And so you act like I'm trying to trip you up or trick you or something, and so there's 10 toes even in that, and that also corresponds with these 10 kings that are going to be set up in this last final form. Well, it's not the final form. It's the final worldly form of government and religion that the Antichrist is going to set up. All right, so... And why does it say that this kingdom is not yet? Because it is not yet. It's not going to happen until the tribulation begins, all right? It will begin to form in the initial stages of the tribulation, but it won't make its full form with the 10 kings and them completely devoted to the Antichrist until the midpoint of the tribulation. So let's just read through here. And it's going to tell you about the relationship between the 10 kings and the Antichrist. Starting in verse 12, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind. In other words, they're united. All right, they have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So everything that they have, all their resources, all their influences, all their power, they're going to yield that to the Antichrist. Verse number 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the land shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called the chosen and faithful. So again, these people are devoted to the Antichrist. They're devoted. They support him wholeheartedly, and they ally with him to make war against the Lord, to make war against the Lamb. And so, but they're going to be destroyed. They're going to be defeated, and the Lamb is going to be revealed at that time. You know, the revelation of Jesus Christ. He's going to be revealed at this time, not as the baby in the manger, not as the man on the cross. He's going to be revealed as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he is going to, again, he's going to prevail, and he's going to triumph over these people. All right. And the Antichrist. All right, so let's go to chapter 19. We can just read some of that's going to take place. We're fast forwarding here a little bit. Chapter 19, verse number 17. This gives a description of how it's going to take place. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come, gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of, what's the next word? Now, how many kings are we talking about? There's 10, all right? That ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. Now remember, all of these 10 kings, they're going to unite their kingdoms together with all of their personnel, with all of their power, to come against the King of Kings. And of course, that's going to take place in the Valley of Megiddo, where the Battle of Armageddon is going to take place. By the way, if you go to Israel, you'll be able to see that place. Just a little blurb in for that. So you're going to have men, you're going to have beasts. Now look down in verse 17 of chapter 19. No, we read that one. Let's go on down to verse 19 in there. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on this horse and against his army. Now, who's in that army? Anybody know? Who's in the army that's coming with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords? Who's in that army? The saints are. All right, we'll get to that. Verse number 20. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. And the remnant, and these are the ones that followed with the Antichrist, these kings and these captains and all that. The remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceedeth out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. Now go back to verse number 14 of chapter 19. Well, let me back up a little bit. Verse number 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. But he was clothed in a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. Who is that? That's Jesus. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. That's Jesus. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, and with it he shall smite all smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of God. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So that's kind of how that's going to go down, all right? And that's the end of that. And then let's go back to chapter 17. We'll finish up these last few verses here. Verse 14, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called the chosen, are called and chosen and faithful. These are not angels. These are going to be you and I. These are the saints who have been redeemed because we've been given white garments. What are they clothed in? We read that. They're coming with white and clean, and so we're coming back with him. All right, verse number 15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples and multitude and nations and tongues. Again, this is talking about that religious system and who's involved in it, all the nations, all the tongues, all the people that are left on the earth. And so that rise up, they have taken the mark of the beast that rise up against the Lord. And it says, verse 16, the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. This is what I was talking about there's going to be a transition between that religion that has once formed, and the Antichrist is going to overthrow that and elevate himself to be worshipped. And so he's going to turn all the world against that ecumenical religious system. And then verse 17, for God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So this is playing out just as how God intends for it to. In verse 18, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And again, we've been over this. So I hope I explained that clear enough. Do you understand the 7 heads? You understand what that is? Oh man, you look at me like deer in the headlights again. 7 heads, those are the kingdoms that have been, the 5 that have fallen, the one that is, that was the Roman, and then the one that's coming, and that's the one that Antichrist is going to rule. What are the 10 horns? The 10 horns are 10 kings that are going to be part of this ruling power in the tribulation period. Possibly, I don't know how it'll be set up. We kind of speculate on that. But it could be 10 sectors, 10 divisions of the earth where these people are going to reign from. They're going to give all their power to the beast. Again, to be influenced, deceptively, I might add, deceptively influenced to rule and to reign and to follow the beast against the Lamb and to make war against the Lamb and to try to overthrow truth, to try to prevent the Lord from coming to establish his kingdom. By the way, we're leading up, just kind of fast forward a little bit, we're leading up to the Lord return and setting up his 1,000-year rule. So he will rule for 1,000 years, but the Antichrist, Satan, is trying to prevent that at all costs. And of course, he's not going to be able to, but he's going to attempt to, and he's going to try to use all the people of the earth that have made it through the tribulation up to this point to try to do that. But of course, what's going to happen is they're going to be destroyed, and the Lamb is going to prevail. The Bible tells us that, right? Okay. A lot of info. All right, I hope you process that. Did you process that? No? Okay. All right. Let's bow for a word of prayer. Father, we love you.